Yeah, we're blessed. Midland comes to Susie South 40. They really do. I either taught them to dance or taught their kids or. So that's how I know a lot of them. Midland Reporter Telegram did an article on me once, and they figured I taught 3,000 a year because I taught any place they'd let me. It was legal. I taught dance for 30 years, but I also worked for the hotels, for the Holiday Inns, the Hiltons, and all. I used to go bid on conventions and softball tournaments to bring them here. Freddie Ezell was the commissioner with the State Amateur Softball Association, and I represented the hotels. And I went with him to the national conventions when he was bidding on them to bring them to Midland and Odessa. I decided it's not where I wanted to be anymore. There was more to life than that. I was not happy. Kept being hired from one hotel to another, which was very flattering, and made more money every time, and even ended up one of them. I said, okay, in the contract, I want a guided hunt. Because my husband and I'd go hunt, and I said, I want a guided hunt for antelope. So we went to the Panhandle, and I got my antelope, and it's mounted. I had a friend that had a pecan grove south of Midland on 40 acres, and that's how we got our name. He had 800 pecan trees, and he wanted to do something with the pecans rather than just sell them, and I like to cook. So I said, I'll develop the recipes, and that's how we got started. Well, the first season I baked, because I'm a baker. I didn't make candy. So I'm a baker, so we had banana nut bread, we had brownies, chocolate chip cookies. I'm a good baker. We started in 1991 in my kitchen in North Midland, which was illegal at the time, so I stayed under the radar. There was not a cottage law, but you don't just jump out and build a building until you know you have something you can sell. I said that in front of Governor Perry whenever he was over doing a tour on small business. And I had the mayor, state representative, and all there at the same time. And they were going, no, Susie, don't say that. And I said, no, I'm legal now. It's okay. We came here summer before third grade. Came from Sweetwater. That's what brought us to West Texas. My dad was a policeman, and my mother worked for the telephone company. And so we came out here in the early 1950s. So I've been here for a day or two. Oh my gosh, the Dust Bowl it was about because my parents built a house out at Permian Estates, and the roads weren't paved or anything, and the sand had blowing. But Midland was really just getting started then. It was a different time. And my parents, of course, didn't have money. A policeman and somebody with the telephone company. Our first house cost $7,400, and the house payments were $49 a month. So, but if you're willing to work and all, then you can do whatever. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Really, this is not rocket science. I got married right out of high school and started teaching dance. After I got out of high school, we moved to Lubbock, and I started putting my first husband through tech. And so I got jobs there in Lubbock, and I worked for doctors' offices and all up there. In 1972, I think is when it was, and we decided we wanted to come back to Midland. We were homesick. Loved Midland, and we liked the school system here. That was huge for us, is how good the school system was in Midland, and this is where we wanted to have our kids. We had 2 boys. Anyhow, I had taught a class at the Midland YMCA. I was teaching a class, and whenever the class was over, I called a girlfriend. I said, let's go to the Last Chance Saloon, because it was always a little side place that the cowboys and everybody would go, and everybody, because it belonged to a couple and all. So we went over there, and this really good-looking cowboy asked me to dance. And I asked the waitress, do you think he'll ask me again? She said, I'll bet he will. He came back over and said, come on, Slick, let's dance. So we danced, and that was October 16th. I married him on October 18th, but it was 2 years and 2 days later. So met him in '84, married him in '86.
There you
Yeah, and so that was it, and that's how I met him. I'm from Sweetwater, met my second husband in the Last Chance Saloon. And so that is a Texas story, if ever there one. That's the real deal. Well, I had a test kitchen, and I had the friend that had the pecan grove and had my husband. And I started asking people, what kind of candy do you like? Because the baked goods don't have a shelf life. And found out that toffee was very popular. So I got all my cookbooks. Everybody that collects cookbooks usually has about 50. So I started lining them up and going through the recipes, finding a common denominator, and started testing and found out that the toffee was the best, and then kept working on it until I got it like I wanted it. One day I told Mike, that was my husband, I said, try this, tell me what you think. And he said, baby, you hit a home run. It's sugar and pecans and butter. And when you start out with like 26 pounds of butter, and you don't spare a calorie. Now, you're either going to be in the candy business or you're not. And I'm in the candy business, so I'm the local sugar pusher.
I make sure all the candy's cooked right, make sure everybody's working and packing the correct way, ordering the stuff that needs to be ordered for us to make the candy and so on. You take out the butter, you peel the butter, and then you put it in a tray. Then, in the big old cookers, you put the water in, and then you put the butter, and then you have the sugar, the salt, and the lecithin. And then you let it cook to a certain degrees, and then you add the pecans. You let it cook again for a certain degrees, and then you take it out. Then you add the baking soda. Then you stir the baking soda in the toffee. Then you put it on a cooling table, and then you spread it out. You cut up the toffee to where it fits in a sheet pan after it's already been cut. First, we take the butter off, the extra butter. Then we put chocolate. Then we put powdered sugar. Then we flip it the other way around. Then we clean off the extra butter. Then more chocolate, no more powdered sugar. On each tray, you have about 3 slabs, and that's a whole kettle.
And then later, I bought the recipe for the Texas trash, started doing that. That's another one that's real popular. But I'm a chocoholic, so I was into the chocolate, and that's the Fudge Richie. It was Fudge Ricky, but God was in the fax machine when I got the artwork, and the K looked like an H, and so it's Fudge Richie. You can't have a better name for fudge. So, and I'm trademarked to everything. And then we're from Texas, so then I did a recipe with coconut. Well, coconut has all these sticky outies on it, so I named them tumbleweeds, okay? And then I did the pralines, and they're a caramel, and they're not the sugar. It took me longer to develop that recipe than any. I named them kickers because I'm a kicker. I took the first word off so I could sell them in the stores. But we know what I am, so that works out just fine. The first location was out at South 40. We had windows out there where you could watch them making the candy, because when I was in the hotel business, one of the biggest challenges I had was that we don't have anything for tourism. So I wanted a place where people could watch the candy being made because they're fascinated with that. So we had windows there in the little, it was 1,500 square feet is how big that building was. This one's 15,000. So we've grown. And then after 10 years, separated from the partner that had the pecan grove, bought him out, the bank and I did. And then we leased a building over on Fairgrounds. And that was where 18-wheelers used to drive through. It was pretty good size. It was 20,000 square feet, a lot more than we needed. But the price was really good. And I was there for 10 years. And then one day the guy said, he was a great landlord, he said, Susie, I'm not gonna renew your lease. And I'm going, what am I gonna do? And he said, well, oil companies can pay more. And I was going like, duh, candy company, oil company, of course you're going to, you know. So then I started looking for another location and couldn't find one, and that was during the boom. There's a thing about God looking out for me. And when I do my tours or I do my talks to anybody, I said, God brought me this far, and He's not going to leave me now. He's been taking care of me all along, and I'm a handful. And anybody that knows me goes, yeah, that's true. So when I started looking for it, this incredible person, Dan Rush, ended up, he had a piece of property for sale. I called him about it, and so then he found out I was lost too, so he helped me. And we found this location that this was good because I wanted to be downtown. That was my son, that was David. And so I told David, I said, I want to do something fun, something different. So instead of shovels, let's use spoons. And he said, okay. And he said, okay, I'll set it up. I said, all right. So he got the big red fire trucks from the fire department, and they lined up and made the background the red. And he got sugar and poured it out in the parking lot. They had the spoons for the groundbreaking. I had the mayor, state representative, and all these others at the time. And so that's when the groundbreaking, that's the picture that you have there, and the big spoons. And so that was our groundbreaking for this. Out in this West Texas wind, all that sugar probably is in Martin County. I'm telling you. People like the convenience of Wadley, and that's why I picked it. That's why there are convenience stores. And that's what Wadley was, a convenience store. The last time we wanted to renew the lease, they said, we're going to demolish the building, and there's some other spaces too, and that was why. And so I said, okay, so when are you going to do it? It sounded like it was imminent, and I said, okay, will you let me sign a 1-year lease then? Because they're usually 3. And he said, no, that wouldn't be good for them or for me. I said, okay, how long do I have to get out? And he said, 30 days. Get your Crayolas and color me gone. I was gone. That was the very best location in Midland. There was no question. And my customers still scold me. Oh my gosh, they go, I sure do miss Wadley. I said, I know, but they don't sell it. We're doing fine. The customers are getting used to it. And we do deliveries. We did those before too. So, you know, it's whatever. You just work through it. It's just one of life's challenges. When I started the business, I said, I will not treat my employees like I was treated. That was my promise that I made to myself, and all because God gave me the opportunity to be in business and do. And I don't want to have a business that my employees dread going to work.
I do a little bit of everything. I help out in the gift shop. Mainly I do office work, whatever it takes. The one thing that really just stuck with me was family comes first. And she knows that my family does. You know, my family's always been first, my parents. She's always had this, that she doesn't own us, that our family comes first, and whenever we need to go take care of our family, then we still have our jobs. And so,
because I heard that she was real flexible with the person that, you know, back then I only had 2 kids, you know, and she would work, she was very flexible in my hours, you know. Other employers usually say, well, that's not my problem, I don't care, you know, you need to come to work. And with her, it's more understanding, you know, being a parent and taking care of your kids and working.
We wholesale it, and they sell it in stores all across the United States. So we do that, yes. And then we ship it all over. We're having opportunities that we have to sort them out because Costco called because they want to carry my chocolates. I don't have succession, so because my son doesn't want it, my other son, I don't know if he would have. So if somebody, in God's good time, somebody will come and they'll buy it, and I'll show those people how to do it and carry on, because that's really what I'd like to have happen, is for the candy company to keep going for Midland and West Texas. They come through that door over there, and I ask them where they're from. They're from all over the United States and the world that come in this candy shop. And I always visit with them, ask them what brought them. Usually it's something with the oil related. And one of the things they always say, they've never been any place that there were so many friendly people as what there are here in West Texas. I mean, it's their candy company. You know, I built it for West Texas, for Midland, and something that people take pride in, and that they come here. This is their candy company. It belongs to them, and they know it. and they take the candy when they travel all over the world. And then they come back and tell me, well, I can't go back to Australia unless I take the trash or the toffee, whichever one is the favorite. But they tell me, don't come back here until you bring some more of Susie's candy. I'm going, yes, that's what I want. And so they're my ambassadors, and they take it all over the world, and they come back and tell me stories when they have the trips. And I'm going, yep, that's what I want. I wanted it to be representative of Midland, that if you want it, this is where you get it. I just went to an iris, that's flowers, show. I started that 47 years ago. They just had their 45th show. I had 2 boys, and they were not very big built, and I thought they're going to get killed in football. So started the West Texas Soccer Association. And I've been chairman of the Chamber of Commerce and MHMR. They don't call it that anymore, but that's what I've been president of that. And in the Meals on Wheels, I chaired that 2 different times, about, 15 or 20 years apart. Oh, Midland Humane Coalition, that's my most recent one, and we've saved over 15,000 cats and dogs since we started that. But if I was interested in it, then I got involved to support it. And Art Cole, Midland Community Theater, I did theater for a lot of years. He was my mentor. He was my neighbor too over in North Midland, he and Ruth. But Art used to say, if there's something that needs to be done and you're interested and nothing's happening, make yourself a committee of 1 and start it or do it. And that's the way I've always done. Midland has been so good to me. And as long as you do something honestly with a passion, Midland will support you 150%. Oh, I'm so proud. I'm just busting. I really am. I am flattered to this day when somebody tells me they like my candy. That warms my heart. It tells me I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I was in line someplace, I don't know when, and I said, I don't know if I'm doing what God wants me to do. And this man, I have no clue who he was. He said, oh, you're doing what God wants you to do. You're making the good candy. I thought, okay, I got an answer there.